Tiger Woods spent decades building one of the most untouchable images in sports history. Discipline. Precision. Control. To millions of people, he wasn't just a golfer. He was proof that greatness could look flawless. But behind the trophies, the endorsements, and the carefully protected image was a man slowly losing control of his own life. Multiple car crashes. Public humiliation. Addiction rumors. Affairs exposed across national television. Police body cam footage showing one of the most famous athletes alive barely able to stay conscious behind the wheel of a car. And yet, people still struggle to criticize him. Because Tiger Woods is no longer treated like a normal person. He became something bigger than that. An institution. A symbol. A billion-dollar legacy that the sport of golf desperately needed to protect. The uncomfortable truth is that Tiger's story was never just about talent. It was about what happens when someone becomes so important that the world starts softening the consequences around them. For years, every scandal became another redemption arc. Every collapse became another comeback story. And every warning sign was reframed as adversity instead of dysfunction. But eventually, even legends run out of excuses. And the strangest part about Tiger Woods' downfall, is that many people still refuse to admit it already happened. Tiger Woods didn't just dominate golf. He changed the emotional structure of the sport itself. Before Tiger, golf was viewed as controlled, quiet, almost sterile. It was a sport associated with patience, etiquette, and country club tradition. Then Tiger arrived and turned it into something intense. Violent, almost. Crowds followed him like rock stars. TV ratings exploded whenever he played. Entire tournaments felt different when he was on the course. He wasn't simply successful. He became larger than the game. And that's exactly why the world kept protecting him. Because once someone reaches that level of cultural importance, people stop evaluating them like a normal human being. The conversation changes. Fans no longer ask whether their behavior is acceptable. Instead, they start searching for reasons to excuse it. Tiger created too much money. Too much attention. Too much emotional investment. Golf didn't just benefit from Tiger Woods. It became dependent on him. That dependence slowly created a dangerous environment around his life. Every scandal became easier to rationalize. Every reckless decision became part of a redemption narrative. Even his self-destruction was often framed as adversity instead of accountability. And in many ways, Tiger was the perfect person to fall into that trap. Because he was never raised to live a normal life. From childhood, he was conditioned to perform. To win. To become extraordinary at any cost. Long before the cheating scandals, the painkillers, the car crashes, and the public embarrassment. There was already something deeply unhealthy forming underneath the surface. Tiger Woods grew up being treated less like a child and more like a long-term project. His father didn't simply believe Tiger would become a great golfer. He believed his son was destined to change humanity itself. That kind of pressure creates results. But it also creates people who no longer understand where the performance ends and where the real person begins. And the terrifying part is that Tiger's downfall wasn't caused by one scandal. It was the natural outcome of a system that rewarded him for being superhuman while quietly ignoring the damage it was doing to him behind the scenes. If Tiger Woods had failed, people probably would have viewed his childhood very differently. Because underneath the inspirational story about discipline and greatness was a kid raised under relentless pressure before he was even old enough to understand what fame really was. Tiger wasn't taught to explore who he wanted to become. He was taught to dominate. His father, Earl Woods, approached Tiger's development almost like a military operation. Earl had served in the U.S. Army, and he used many of those same discipline principles while raising his son. From the time Tiger was barely old enough to walk, golf became the center of his identity. At just 18 months old, Tiger was already practicing at driving ranges until he physically exhausted himself. Earl immediately recognized how unusual his son's talent looked and began promoting him aggressively to local media in Southern California. Soon, Tiger was appearing on television as a child prodigy. News anchors spoke about him like he was some kind of phenomenon. At only 5 years old, he was already shooting near par on full golf courses while cameras followed him around. And Earl didn't talk about Tiger like a normal father proud of his son. He talked about him like a prophecy. He repeatedly described Tiger as someone chosen to change the world. At one point, Earl openly claimed that God had selected him specifically to guide Tiger toward greatness. Later, he famously called his son the chosen one, saying Tiger would influence nations, not just people. That kind of expectation is enormous for an adult. Tiger was still a child. To be fair, Earl wasn't physically abusive in the way some infamous stage parents were. But psychological pressure can be just as powerful. Tiger later admitted that his father would get in his face, make him feel small, and push him relentlessly whenever expectations weren't met. Failure was never presented as an option. And the scary thing is, Tiger actually lived up to all of it. At 15 years old, he became the youngest golfer ever to win the U.S. Junior Amateur Championship. Then he won it again. And again. But by that point, the pressure surrounding Tiger had already expanded beyond golf itself. Because Tiger wasn't just being prepared to become an athlete. He was being prepared to become a symbol. America saw enormous commercial potential in him. A young black golfer dominating a traditionally white sport was marketable on a massive scale. Media outlets openly compared his future cultural impact to Michael Jordan before he was even old enough to drive. And when the entire world starts telling a teenager that he is destined for greatness, something dangerous can happen psychologically. You stop developing like a normal person. Your identity becomes tied to performance. Winning becomes survival. Admiration becomes oxygen. And once that happens, it becomes very difficult to separate self-worth from success. That seed of dysfunction followed Tiger long before the scandals ever arrived. Because deep down, he wasn't raised to become emotionally healthy. He was raised to become legendary. By the late 1990s, it stopped feeling like Tiger Woods was competing against other golfers. It felt like he was competing against the sport itself. Everything happened absurdly fast. At Stanford University, Tiger won nearly half the tournaments he entered. Not because he occasionally played better than everyone else, but because he consistently destroyed entire fields of elite collegiate golfers. In one championship, he won by 14 strokes. In another, he shot a terrible final round by his standards and still comfortably won the tournament anyway. Even before turning professional, people already knew this was different. Then Nike signed him to a historic $40 million endorsement deal before he had proven anything on the PGA Tour. Veteran golfers hated it. To many older players, Tiger looked arrogant. Overhyped. Too confident for someone who hadn't earned his place yet. But Tiger viewed golf differently from everyone around him. Most professional golfers enter tournaments hoping to compete well enough to survive financially. Tiger entered expecting to win. And almost immediately, he did. Less than 2 months into his professional career, he won his first PGA Tour event. Then another. Then another. But the moment that truly changed golf forever came at the 1997 Masters. Tiger Woods didn't just win the tournament. He humiliated the field. He won by 12 strokes, still the largest margin of victory in Masters history. While simultaneously becoming the youngest champion the tournament had ever seen. From that moment forward, golf belonged to him. And what happened next barely felt real. In 1999, he won 8 PGA Tour events in a single season. Then came 2000, a year many still consider one of the greatest individual seasons in sports history. Tiger won 9 tournaments, including 3 major championships. At the US Open, he won by 15 strokes against the best golfers in the world, a margin so absurd it still feels fictional. Then he did something nobody else in golf history had ever accomplished. Between 2000 and 2001, Tiger won all 4 major championships consecutively. Not across an entire career. In a row. The achievement became known as the Tiger Slam, and it permanently separated him from every golfer of his generation. But statistics alone don't fully explain what Tiger became. Tiger changed the emotional atmosphere of golf. Before him, golf looked passive. Controlled. Reserved. Tiger brought intimidation. The fist pumps. The cold stares. The aggressive swagger. The feeling that tournaments were already over before they even started. Crowds followed him across entire courses while barely paying attention to anyone else. Roars from fans echoed so loudly that players on completely different holes knew Tiger had done something spectacular again. Other golfers openly admitted they became nervous simply being near him. And physically, he looked nothing like the generation before him. Golf had traditionally been dominated by older players who treated athleticism as optional. Tiger trained like a football player. Stronger. Faster. Leaner. He modernized the expectations of what elite golf performance could look like. Entire generations of golfers later copied his methods. By the mid-2000s, winning had become so normal for Tiger that reporters often treated second-place finishes like failures. He won 7 straight tournaments in 2006. Then 5 straight again the following year. In golf, even winning back-to-back events is rare enough to become a major story. Tiger made dominance feel routine. And financially, his impact was almost impossible to overstate. Television ratings exploded whenever he played. Prize pools skyrocketed. Sponsorship money flooded the sport. Golf became dramatically more profitable because Tiger Woods existed. He wasn't just the face of golf anymore. He was the economy of golf. Which is exactly why what happened next became so difficult for the sport to process. Because behind the dominance, the privacy, and the carefully controlled image, cracks were already forming. For years, almost nobody really knew who Tiger Woods was outside of golf. That wasn't an accident. Tiger protected his private life obsessively. He rarely invited media into his home. He avoided revealing much emotionally during interviews. He even named his massive yacht Privacy, almost like a warning to the outside world. As long as he kept winning, people accepted the mystery. But eventually, the image started slipping. In late 2009, the National Enquirer prepared to publish a story claiming Tiger was having an affair with a woman named Rachel Uckettle. Tiger reportedly warned his wife, Ellen Nordegren, before the article came out and tried to minimize the situation. Insisting Rachel was simply someone he had met socially. At first, it almost looked manageable. Then everything spiraled in a single night. On Thanksgiving evening, Ellen allegedly discovered text messages on Tiger's phone that confirmed the affair was real. According to reports, she began messaging Rachel while pretending to be Tiger himself. Rachel responded affectionately, believing she was speaking directly to him. That was all the confirmation Ellen needed. What happened next instantly became one of the most infamous nights in sports history. Tiger fled the house in the middle of the night and crashed his SUV into a fire hydrant and a tree just outside his property. Suddenly, the biggest athlete in the world was lying unconscious in the street while tabloids desperately tried to piece together what had happened behind closed doors. And the public immediately sensed something darker underneath the surface. Because this didn't feel like a simple cheating scandal anymore. It felt chaotic. Reckless. Out of control. Almost immediately, rumors exploded everywhere. Questions about the smashed rear window of Tiger's vehicle became national news. Some believed Ellen had shattered it with a golf club during the argument. Others defended her version of events, where she claimed she broke the window afterward to help rescue him from the car. Nobody knew exactly what happened. But the mystery only made the story larger. Then came the real disaster. More women started coming forward. One mistress became 2. Then 5. Then 11. Voicemails leaked publicly. Text messages surfaced. Women described secret relationships that lasted months or even years while Tiger carefully maintained the image of a disciplined family man. And what shocked people wasn't simply the cheating itself. It was the scale of the deception. Tiger had spent years presenting himself as controlled, disciplined, almost robotic in his professionalism. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, he was living a completely different life built on secrecy, manipulation, and constant escape. The contrast was disturbing. Especially because golf had always marketed itself as a sport centered around integrity. Unlike most sports, golf relies heavily on self-policing. Players are expected to call penalties on themselves even when nobody else notices a mistake. Honesty is built into the culture of the game. And Tiger represented that culture more than anyone alive. Which is why the scandal hit differently. This wasn't just an athlete getting caught cheating on his wife. It felt like the collapse of an illusion people emotionally depended on. And once the media realized how massive the story had become, they stopped treating Tiger Woods like a sports icon. They started treating him like prey. The scandal didn't explode all at once. It kept getting worse every single day. Right after Tiger's car crash, US Weekly revealed a second alleged mistress named Jamie Grubbs. But unlike the earlier reports, this story came with evidence. She released a voicemail from Tiger himself, where he nervously asked her to remove her name from her phone in case his wife discovered it. Suddenly, the image of the calm, controlled superstar completely shattered. People weren't just hearing accusations anymore. They were hearing Tiger panic in real time. And then the floodgates opened. More women appeared almost daily. Cocktail waitresses. Models. Nightclub workers. Adult film actresses. Some claimed Tiger had promised them exclusivity. Others described secret trips, constant texting, and emotionally manipulative relationships that lasted years. Within weeks, the list of alleged affairs climbed into double digits. The media became absolutely ruthless. Television networks covered the story non-stop. Tabloids treated every new revelation like breaking national news. At one point, the New York Post reportedly ran Tiger scandal headlines on the front page for nearly 3 straight weeks. The entire situation became public humiliation on a historic scale. And for the first time in his life, Tiger Woods couldn't control the narrative anymore. Eventually, he released a statement admitting he had not been faithful to his values. But by then, the damage was already irreversible. Sponsors began distancing themselves almost immediately. Gillette suspended campaigns featuring him. AT&T ended their relationship. Gatorade cut ties. Consulting giant Accenture publicly stated Tiger was no longer the right representative for their brand. One of the safest corporate athletes in the world had suddenly become toxic. And then came the apology press conference. Tiger stood in front of cameras and finally admitted something people had never heard from him before. He believed normal rules no longer applied to him. He openly described feeling entitled because of fame and wealth. He admitted he convinced himself he deserved access to temptations other people couldn't have. For many viewers, it was the first genuinely human thing Tiger had ever said publicly. But it was also deeply revealing. Because underneath all the discipline and perfection was someone who had spent years living without boundaries. And even after the apology, the chaos didn't fully stop. South Park mocked the scandal. Late-night comedians obsessed over it. The golf club rumors became cultural folklore. Tiger Woods had transformed from America's perfect athlete into one of the most publicly embarrassed celebrities in the world. Then his body started collapsing too. The years after the scandal became filled with surgeries, injuries, and visible decline. Knee problems. Achilles injuries. Back pain severe enough to repeatedly force him away from competition. For the first time ever, Tiger looked vulnerable on the golf course. He stopped dominating tournaments. Then he stopped winning entirely. Between 2010 and 2011, he failed to win a single PGA Tour event. For almost any golfer, that would sound normal. For Tiger Woods, it felt catastrophic. And the physical deterioration only accelerated. By 2014, chronic back issues began destroying his consistency. He underwent multiple surgeries. In 2015, he posted some of the worst scores of his professional career, including an infamous round of 85. Something almost unimaginable for someone once considered unbeatable. But the lowest moment came in 2017. Police officers found Tiger asleep inside his car at around 3 in the morning with damaged tires and visible confusion. Bodycam footage later showed him struggling to follow simple instructions during sobriety testing. At one point, when asked to repeat directions, Tiger bizarrely referenced singing the national anthem backwards. It was disturbing to watch. Tiger later claimed alcohol was not involved and blamed an unexpected reaction to prescription medications. Investigators eventually revealed multiple substances were found in his system, including Vicodin, Xanax, Ambien, THC, and Dilaudid. At that point, the conversation surrounding Tiger changed again. Because now this wasn't just infidelity. It wasn't just recklessness. It looked like addiction. And yet, something strange kept happening. People still protected him. Fans called him misunderstood. Golf legends defended him publicly. Commentators focused more on his pain than the danger of his behavior. Even after being found impaired behind the wheel of a car, the overwhelming reaction was sympathy. Because by then, Tiger Woods had become too emotionally important for many people to fully condemn. And that protection would eventually help create one of the most unbelievable comeback stories sports had ever seen. What made Tiger Woods' downfall so unusual wasn't just the scandals themselves. It was how quickly the public learned to emotionally reorganize them. At first, the media treated Tiger like a spectacle. Headlines were brutal. Television hosts mocked him relentlessly. Every new mistress became another week of national entertainment. The internet turned his collapse into meme culture almost overnight. People joked about the crashed SUV. The golf club rumors. The leaked voicemails. The endless tabloid stories. For a brief period, Tiger Woods stopped feeling like a sports icon and started feeling like celebrity gossip. But then something shifted. The more Tiger disappeared from golf, the more people realized how empty the sport felt without him. TV ratings dropped. Tournaments lost energy. Crowds became quieter. And slowly, public opinion began changing. Instead of framing Tiger as selfish or reckless, people started reframing him as damaged. Broken. Human. The narrative transformed from disgraced superstar into fallen legend trying to recover. That emotional shift became especially obvious after his 2017 DUI arrest. Normally, footage of a wealthy celebrity barely conscious behind the wheel would permanently destroy their reputation. But with Tiger, many fans reacted almost protectively. Social media filled with comments about painkillers, chronic injuries, and the psychological pressure of fame. Even other golfers seemed uncomfortable criticizing him. Jack Nicklaus publicly said Tiger needed help. PGA players defended him in interviews. Some outright admitted golf needed Tiger Woods to survive commercially. And that's the fascinating part. The conversation was no longer really about accountability. It became about preservation. People wanted Tiger back because professional golf still revolved around his existence emotionally, financially, and culturally. Fans didn't just miss his dominance. They missed what he represented. Sundays felt bigger when Tiger was competing. The sport felt more important when he mattered. Then came the 2019 Masters. And suddenly, the internet completed Tiger's redemption arc for him. After years of injuries, surgeries, scandals, and humiliation, Tiger shocked the world by winning his fifth Masters title. Social media exploded emotionally. Fans posted videos crying after his final putt dropped. News outlets described it as one of the greatest comeback stories in sports history. In that moment, almost everything else disappeared. The affairs. The addiction concerns. The reckless driving. The chaos. The internet decided the story now meant perseverance. People wore shirts featuring his mugshot almost like nostalgic memorabilia. His scandals stopped functioning as stains on his legacy and became part of the mythology itself. The darker moments of his life were reframed as obstacles he heroically overcame rather than warnings people ignored. And that kind of public forgiveness is extremely rare. Most celebrities become permanently defined by scandal. Tiger Woods somehow became even more legendary because he survived his. But underneath all the applause, the deeper problems never truly disappeared. They were simply buried beneath nostalgia. Tiger Woods is one of the clearest examples of what happens when someone becomes too valuable to fail publicly. Because over time, the world stopped treating him like a person and started treating him like infrastructure. Golf needed Tiger. Sponsors needed Tiger. Television networks needed Tiger. Fans needed Tiger. And once enough money and emotional investment become attached to someone, accountability starts bending around them. That's why Tiger's controversies were often discussed differently than they would be for almost anyone else. The cheating became private mistakes. The DUIs became sad struggles. The crashes became adversity. People constantly searched for softer language because fully confronting the reality of Tiger Woods felt emotionally uncomfortable. But if you strip away the mythology, the pattern underneath his life is actually very consistent. Tiger spent his entire childhood learning that performance solved everything. Win enough, and people forgive you. Dominate enough, and people protect you. Stay valuable enough, and consequences become negotiable. That mindset is dangerous when combined with fame on a global scale. Especially because Tiger never developed publicly in a normal way emotionally. From childhood, he existed inside an artificial environment where praise, pressure, money, and expectation completely consumed his identity. There was never much separation between Tiger the golfer and Tiger the human being. And when someone builds their self-worth entirely around greatness, failure becomes psychologically terrifying. That may explain why Tiger constantly seemed drawn toward forms of escape. Women. Painkillers. Prescription medication. Privacy. Isolation. Not because success made him happy, but because maintaining that success likely became exhausting. Elite athletes often become addicted to intensity itself. Their entire nervous system adapts to pressure, competition, adrenaline, and constant stimulation. Then eventually, age arrives. Injuries arrive. Decline arrives. And suddenly the thing that gave their life meaning starts disappearing. For Tiger. That collapse was probably even harder because his father spent decades convincing him he was destined to become something almost superhuman. Earl Woods didn't raise Tiger to simply be successful. He raised him to believe he was historically important. That creates enormous psychological distortion. Because when you grow up being treated like a chosen figure, ordinary rules can begin feeling optional. Tiger admitted this himself during his apology speech. He openly said he convinced himself normal boundaries didn't apply to him anymore. And the terrifying part is, the world reinforced that belief repeatedly. Even after public humiliation. Even after reckless driving. Even after addiction concerns. The overwhelming response remained sympathy. Not necessarily because people were wrong for empathizing with him, but because many fans emotionally needed Tiger Woods to remain redeemable. He represented too much nostalgia. Too much inspiration. Too much economic value to the sport itself. So instead of demanding change, people celebrated survival. And that creates a cycle where consequences never fully land psychologically. Every comeback erases urgency. Every redemption arc softens criticism. Every standing ovation teaches the same lesson again. As long as Tiger Woods can still emotionally move people, the world will keep forgiving him. Which is why his story feels less like a simple celebrity scandal and more like a warning about fame itself. Because sometimes greatness doesn't protect people from self-destruction. Sometimes it protects the self-destruction from being stopped. At this point, Tiger Woods no longer feels like a normal athlete. He feels like a contradiction people are emotionally attached to. A man capable of almost superhuman discipline on the golf course while simultaneously losing control everywhere else. Someone who inspired millions through focus, resilience, and dominance, yet repeatedly endangered himself and others through reckless behavior. And maybe that contradiction is exactly why people struggle to let go of the idealized version of him. Because Tiger represents something larger than golf. For one generation, he was proof that greatness could feel inevitable. He transformed an old, quiet sport into something intense and cinematic. He made people care about golf who never cared before. Entire careers, sponsorships, and television empires grew around his existence. So when Tiger falls apart, people don't just see a celebrity making mistakes. They see part of their own nostalgia collapsing with him. That's why every comeback became emotional. Every return became symbolic. Every victory became proof that maybe the legend was still alive. But eventually, reality catches everyone. The body slows down. The pressure stops creating greatness and starts creating damage. The image becomes harder to maintain than the person underneath it. And maybe the saddest part of Tiger Woods' story isn't that he changed. Maybe it's that the world rewarded him for never truly having to. Because when someone becomes important enough, society stops asking whether they're okay to continue. It only asks whether they can still perform. And for a very long time, Tiger Woods could.